Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club Podcast, where every week me and Miss Boo take turns picking films to watch and talk about. Some are good, some are bad, but at the Film Club, well, we get to talk about ourselves this week.
Yeah, it's kind of different, not talking about one set movie.
Yeah, this one is going to be interesting. It's the first time we just get to talk about us as people in the context of movies, because that's what we're about here.
Yeah, because even if you knew us on a personal level, it still all revolves around movies.
More or less. But, yeah, so why don't you explain to everybody why we decided to do this episode?
So for New Year's Eve this year, we're not going to pick a movie, we're going to be talking about kind of like 20 movies in one episode. So bear with us. But this is our year in review, since we've been around for a little over a year. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary in October. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about some of our favorite episodes, some of our least favorite episodes, and just overall movies.
Yeah, we figured this would be easier to do than watching a movie right on Christmas Eve, because I'm going to get blasted. I ain't going to lie to anybody.
This is our New Year's Eve episode, so...
Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, I'm still hungover. But as it goes... Where do you want to get started on this one? Because we actually got a couple of questions we got in from people who listen to the show, who've talked to us in, like, real life, that we thought would be interesting. But, do you want to start off with the big one?
Yeah, I think we should do the big one, which is, what are our top 10 all-time favorite movies?
Yeah, so I'm bad, and I came up with a top 20 out of a list of 100 movies.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'll just rattle off all my favorite movies real quick. It can't be that long. It was like 100 movies. And I'm like, all right, now which are my real favorite movies? And it was like 20 movies. And I was like, all right. Now I had to like weight them. It became a tier list like Smash Brothers. And it was a whole thing.
Yeah, because this is kind of like games that we like to play when we're driving in the car, where we do like Desert Island movies, Desert Island books.
What album would you take with you to space? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, all sorts of games where you sit there and it's just like, oh my god, these are like the only, 10 things I can listen to forever. So, yeah, so why not bring it on here? So, do you want to tell your list first? Do you want me to tell my list?
I figure, I'd say my 10, you say your 10. We kind of go back and forth and lead up.
Sure.
So, ladies first.
Would you want me to start from 10 down?
Yeah, you start at 10 and work your way up to number 1. Like that's
all right.
Have you never done this before?
Well, I mean, we're doing this for the podcast, so it's brand new. So my number 10, because I know we were talking about this before we started recording, you kind of guessed a couple that were on my list.
Yeah, we were both able to figure each other's top 3 pretty easily, but it was the
rest of the list
4 through 10 that was like, I have no idea.
Yeah, okay, so my number 10 on my list is Casablanca from 1942.
Really?
Starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman.
Okay, why Casablanca?
Yes, I love Casablanca. There's just something so... It's just iconic.
I understand it's iconic. It's Casablanca.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what really hits you, in the feels? Is it, the romance, the tragedy, Is it the fact that Humphrey Bogart is just a great actor?
I mean, they're both great actors.
Very good, yes.
I mean, I think every time I think about it or I watch it, I think of As Time Goes By. And it's just, you see the heartbreak in both of their eyes throughout the entire movie. And it's just, it's for the greater good. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you still, at the end of each movie, you wish they're gonna, finally come together. And it's like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
He's got to do what he's got to do. And she's got to go off and, save the world. So, yeah, I love Casablanca.
Yeah, Casablanca's a good movie. But my number 10 is the greatest movie.
Oh, God, what is it?
Okay, it's not the greatest, but it's one of the greatest. It's Night of the Hunter.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Not many people have.
Okay, so tell us about it.
It is a black and white noir thriller film directed by Charles Lawton back from like 1960-something, or maybe like 59. It might have been 55. Shit. It's a very, very old movie. Mm-hmm. But it stars Robert Mitchum, and he's this preacher who's this serial killer, and he travels through the American South. It's during the Depression.
Yeah.
And he infiltrates these communities and, preaching the ballad of like love and hate, right hand, left hand. And he gets enthralled with this woman and her like 2 kids, and he kills her to like find the money that her ex-husband stashed away before he was taken to prison.
Right.
And it's this really weird movie And it's kind of hard to explain because it has this kind of storybook dreamlike quality to it, but it's also gorgeous. This movie has some of the best black and white cinematography I've ever seen. And if you ever see people who have like love and hate tattooed on their knuckles, that's where this comes from. Like yeah. In Do the Right Thing, when he's telling, old left hand, right hand, Ballad of Love and Evil, this is where that comes from.
That, and also on Instagram today, I don't know if it was Criterion or New Beverly, they posted a picture of that, and on his knuckles I saw, love, and I was just like, I've never seen that before, but it caught my eye.
I would recommend everybody see Night of the Hunter if you love movies. That movie's a masterpiece.
I might have to give it a watch.
I got the Criterion.
I figured you would, so let me borrow it after we finish recording this episode.
I got you. What's your next movie?
So my number 9 is Bride of Frankenstein from 1935, starring Boris Karloff, Colin Clive, and the gorgeous Elsa Lanchester as the bride.
Bride of Frankenstein. No shit. Would never have guessed.
I know. Completely, out of left field for me.
How many Bride of Frankenstein shirts do you own? That's a strong answer.
I'm thinking 5. Maybe?
That's a lot of shirts.
Is it though? So I absolutely love The Bride of Frankenstein. It was really hard to kind of go between Frankenstein and The Bride, but I feel like the story's more developed in The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen The Bride of Frankenstein a long time ago, but I do remember, like, all the iconic stuff most people remember from Frankenstein is in The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, because we watched Frankenstein not that long ago, and I was like, this movie's so short. Granted, it's just like iconic beat.
Exactly.
But it's only like an hour long.
Yeah.
And Bride of Frankenstein's an actual like movie. Like it's an actual film.
But also, Elsa Lanchester is just a great actress overall, even though she's only on screen for like 7 minutes in this movie.
Yeah, it's the Hannibal Lecter thing.
Yeah.
The most iconic part of the movie is the one that was on for the least amount of screen time.
Exactly.
I getcha. All right.
So, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is the actual best movie of all time, Citizen Kane. This isn't me being like pretentious and being like, oh, it's the best film of all time and it's one of my favorites. No, like the movie's just really good.
So, my first question: have you already bought or pre-ordered the Criterion 4K Citizen Kane?
I have not. I don't own a 4K player, and I already.
When has that ever stopped you?
I already own my very fancy Blu-ray copy of Citizen Kane. I think it's the 55 or 70 year anniversary. I have no fucking idea. I think it's the 70 year anniversary.
Yeah,
because 55 would have made this in like the mid 90s, so it's the 70 year anniversary of it. But yeah, I really love that movie. I've seen it a dozen times, and it gets better every time. And the thing is with that movie, when I watch it, it raises so many just like good questions, like how do you sum up a man's life?
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of the movie. They're looking for Rosebud. Why would a man who has everything in the world on his deathbed beckon to Rosebud? I'm like, oh, it's just such a really beautifully made film. It's a wonderfully told story. I enjoyed beginning to end, and Orson Welles is one of the best filmmakers of all time. But let's move on to the number 8 on the list.
Okay, number 8 on my list might shock you because I don't think you're going to expect it.
Okay.
Young Frankenstein, 1974.
Okay. All right. Now, I knew you liked Mel Brooks. I was like, I was not sure if it was going to be that or Blazing Saddles, but I'm glad it was Young Frankenstein.
That was a tough pick because I really do love Blazing Saddles, High Anxiety, but it all comes back to the first Mel Brooks movie I watched, which was Young Frankenstein.
Yeah. That's a good Mel Brooks movie.
Good Mel Brooks movie. It's also the original set and equipment from Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's like, it kind of comes full circle, and it's just Frankenstein with comedy, which is
the best kind of Frankenstein.
It just goes hand in hand. There's so much to that movie that I love, but what's your number 8 pick?
My number 8, if you ever are on my personal Instagram, you will know this very quickly, and it's The Iron Giant. I think this movie is the best animated film of all time, bar none, period. This movie is great. It's so human. It's a wonderful story, hits me right in the feels. I am a grown-ass man, and I will cry at the end of it every time.
Every single time.
It's so good. I love that movie. It takes me back to being 5 years old every time.
Interesting. And I do like that movie a lot.
Nice.
So my number 7, which you probably won't be too shocked about, is Jaws, 1975.
Ooh, that's a good movie. That's a good movie to be on a favorites list.
Good movie, good book.
Have you read the book?
I have the book, yes.
Oh, have you read it, though?
Yeah, I've read it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
it's not that long of a read, but it's good.
It's good?
It's good. And I mean, I love Jaws overall. I mean, even though Spielberg was just like, oh my god, this movie tried to kill me.
Yeah, I heard it was like a horrible production.
Yeah, and I mean, especially shooting it at sea, it's just like, my god, they lived what the characters in the movie lived, basically, towards the end when they're on the boat hunting Bruce. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, Jaws.
Is that the movie you know the most random trivia about? It's gotta be up there, right? Because you took us to one of those, like, Jaws screenings just because the guy who did the concept art for Bruce was there?
Did the concept art. The man that built Bruce was there. We got to meet him. Really nice guy.
Yeah.
He signed my book. Yeah, I have a lot of facts about Jaws. I love it.
Nice.
I can't help it.
I get you.
So what's your number 7 pick?
Oh, my number 7 pick, it might be the best Martin Scorsese film ever made, and it's Taxi Driver.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those movies, I don't know why, but it just hit just at the right time.
Yeah.
And watching it, it's just... Robert De Niro's such a good performance in that movie. Travis Bickle is one of those really broken characters that's just fascinating to follow. It's also just... Honestly, it's the Scorsese film I go back to just to remind myself that, no, this guy's a master.
Yeah.
And it's such a good movie for how, like, cheap it was made, and... Yeah, I think it's great. It's such a good movie.
It's got De Niro.
It's got De Niro in it. And Harvey Keitel's in it. Jodie Foster's in it. It's a great... Sybil Shepherd's in it.
It is.
But yeah.
So we're down to number 6, right?
Yeah, it should be number 6.
Number 6, we did this movie for the podcast not too long ago. It is The Mummy, 1999.
Yeah, that is currently our most viewed episode on YouTube.
It is. We're rounding the 4,000 mark on that.
Yeah, and it picked up a bunch of subscribers from that episode. It really is a good movie. It is surprisingly good for being a 1999 kind of effects action movie. Because a lot of the effects still hold up. It's still a really fun adventure movie. It's one of those movies that I'm being surprised at how well that movie held up.
It's an amazing movie.
Yeah, it is
love
an amazing
it.
movie.
We love Brendan Fraser. We love Rachel Weisz. I want to watch The Mummy again.
Okay, but why do you like it so much? What about it just hits you right in the feels? Like hits you home? What's
the story. It's a simple story about this evil mummy that comes back to life, and it's just, there's this quote by Roman Polanski where it's, watching movies should make you feel like you've left the theater and you're in the movie. Mm-hmm. And that's how I feel when I watch The Mummy. I don't feel like I'm at home watching it. I feel like I'm experiencing the movie right in front of me.
Okay.
So it's just one of those movies that just takes me on the adventure with them.
It's a good adventure.
It is a good adventure.
All right. So that's number 6?
Number 6 for me.
We have something in common. This movie we also did for the podcast.
Okay.
It's Evil Dead, Sam Raimi's masterpiece.
I am surprised that this is so low on your list.
I know. It's my number 6, because this is the movie I've probably seen the most times of any movie. I mean, if I haven't seen this movie 50 times, it's fucking close.
Yeah.
Because this is a movie I watched on repeat. It's so fascinating. It's so visceral. It's a movie that somebody described it as Sam Raimi is getting shots that should not be possible with the amount of money he does not have.
Yeah.
It's just a pure display of just filmmaking talent. It's such a fun Bruce Campbell performance, basically being his first movie role.
Yeah.
And it's campy, and it really leans into it. It knows it doesn't have the best production, best budget, but it's so much fun. There are parts of it that are actually like really terrifying, and there's parts of it that are laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
And it knows how to play that line perfectly. I watch this movie and I'm like, this is the kind of movies that I want to make, because he just made it with a couple of friends in the middle of the woods for like no money. Like, that movie is an inspiration to every filmmaker who's ever seen it.
Which, I mean, you do that with your friends. You guys, come together and you make short films. Not in the woods. I feel like you guys would...
We tried that once and it ended horribly.
Exactly. You guys would end up killing each other because of just, there's no water, there's no this. I'm gonna strangle you. You're not following the schedule. But...
it happens.
But, yes, this was Dean's... I feel like this was your favorite episode because you just ran with it.
I would say it is not a good episode because it's not really a conversation. It's me rattling off Evil Dead facts that I've internalized to the point of Bible scripture, alright? I know these things.
Because, Dean's filled with a ton of facts and knowledge, but I feel like Evil Dead, he knows every last thing about this movie, and even Sam Raimi would be like, really? We did that?
I made parts for a Sam Raimi flick for the set design for his most recent movie, which I think it's Doctor Strange, the new Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
And I drew like an Evil Dead logo thing on the back of the paperwork, and it got sent off to like the warehouse thing. I was like, oh shit, I really hope nobody finds that. That'd be way too cringy. But I love that movie so much.
All right, so we're down to number 5.
Number 5. All my number 5 and up, these movies I think are just pure masterpieces. I think these are like almost, if not perfect movies.
Yeah, I'd go the same with mine. My number 5 is The Nightmare Before Christmas, 1993.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I'd have to say that's probably in the realm of one of those perfect movies, or at least one of the most enjoyable movies, because it's such a simple story. It's so much fun.
That, and also the work that went into this movie, because it's entirely stop motion animation, which means it took 3 years for them to pose the figures to make it into a full feature length film. So you have, the music that goes with this movie, which is amazing, because at the time there was no script when Tim Burton brought it to Danny Elfman. So Danny Elfman composing and writing these songs kind of brought the story together versus the original poem that this movie was kind of slated on. Yeah,
I know that people call this a Tim Burton movie, but he didn't direct it, right? He just produced it?
No, at the time, I think he was working on Edward Scissorhands, so he had to pass it over to Henry Selick. But it's still a Tim Burton movie. It's just not directed by him.
It's the same thing where it's like the like Return of the Jedi and all that are not directed by George Lucas, but they're George Lucas movies.
Yeah, because, at the end of the day, this is his story. It's just, he passed it over to someone to complete it for him, and it's a beautiful story.
It is. Also, it's a great performance by, Nick Sarandon?
Chris Sarandon.
I don't know where I got Nick from.
I don't know, but Chris Sarandon, who is in Fright Night, another episode that we did this year.
Yeah, we got to meet him. He was actually at a signing for Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, we met him, and we met Ken Page, who was Oogie Boogie in Nightmare Before Christmas, and just being able to be in their presence and hear their voices, it was just like,
it freaked you out when you heard
Ken Page
talk, because you're just like, you just talk like that? He just talked like Oogie Boogie. It
was the same with Chris Sarandon. It was just like, you are Jack Skellington. Like, what is going on?
It was good.
The fourth wall was broken. But what is your number 5?
My number 5 is John Carpenter's greatest film.
Oh, no.
His masterpiece, The Thing.
I'm not surprised.
Unironically, this movie is one of the greatest horror films ever made. It's a masterpiece beginning to end. It uses paranoia, Lovecraftian elements of horror involved. It works with suspense. The effects in this movie are amazing. Kurt Russell, Keith David are great. Wilford Brimley is amazing in the small role he does have. The movie it also just has this atmosphere and feeling of just utter cold and isolation and paranoia. I love this movie so much. And it's one of those movies, you watch it and you just think about it, and it's just like, this was John Carpenter basically giving, like, the blank check to make whatever he wanted, and he made this, and then he made Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
Another one of your favorite movies.
One of my favorite movies, yes. That one just missed out on the list, but
and we did that for
the podcast, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so number 4, which you're probably not going to be too surprised. For me, it's Psycho.
Yeah.
1960. Oh my God, I love this movie.
I know. And yeah, it is a really good movie. It is a masterpiece. Personally, it's not my favorite Hitchcock movie, but I can't fault anybody for loving that movie. That movie's so good.
There's just something about Psycho. It's a very simple story. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even the beginning, it's just, it's kind of slow moving, and then it just ramps up as soon as we get to the Bates Motel.
Well, that's the crazy thing, because the first half of the movie with Janet Leigh?
Yeah, with Marion Crane.
Yeah, that part of the movie is flawless. There's not a bad thing about the first half of the movie.
I mean, even the intro.
Oh yeah, the intro is great. I think the second half of the movie, for me, is where it kind of gets a little loose. It doesn't get bad. It just gets a little loose with its plot.
Yeah.
But it's still so good. The camera work is amazing. It's also fascinating to see Alfred Hitchcock work on a low budget, because you never get to see that shit.
Yeah. And it's just, knocked it out of the ballpark, because he was like, yeah, well, let's try doing a suspense thriller. And it was just like, wow, one of the best ones of all time.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to do this for an episode. This has been on my list since, we started the podcast, and I just haven't found the right place to put that episode in, but someday it'll be here.
Someday it'll be on.
Yes. So what's your number 4?
My number 4, probably surprisingly, is The Princess Bride.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that from you.
Yeah, well, this, I think, is one of the best adventure films ever made. It has one of the best scripts by William Goldman.
It has Andre the Giant.
It has Andre the Giant in it. Carrie Elways has Chris Sarandon again. And it's one of these movies, you watch it, and it's just, it feels so much at home.
It's also your sister's favorite movie.
Exactly. It's my sister's favorite movie, so I watched this, like, on loop growing up.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies where, like, you watch and it feels so nice, and it's one of these things that it melds genre so well. It's an Errol Flynn action movie. It's an old school romance. It's this fantasy adventure film, and it has a storybook quality to it. And Peter Falk playing the grandfather in this is just like, he's everybody's granddad in that movie, and it's just, and it doesn't help
that you also love Columbo.
I mean, Columbo's great. But, like, I love that movie. Like, unabashedly love that movie.
It's also really funny, too.
It's hilarious. Anybody want a peanut? Oh, Inconceivable. It's so good. And it has the greatest sword fight in any movie, just because of how much goes into it. And yeah, like, that movie comes on at any time, I'm watching the whole thing.
That, and also As You Wish.
As You Wish. For your number 3 pick.
For my number 3... which is kind of controversial with us, because we will argue over which is the best John Carpenter movie.
Forever.
And in my humble opinion, it is Halloween 1978. The movie that started it all.
Yeah, Halloween I really enjoy. I think it's one of the best slasher films. It's a great, it's a great, thriller, and it has a lot of atmosphere, and it really shows that John Carpenter can do so much with so little. But it's not as good as The Thing. But it is a great movie.
But it has Michael Myers.
It does.
One of the best slashers of all time.
My only issue with Halloween is that it gets worse with sequels.
Well, we're not talking about sequels. We're talking about the original.
Well, you're talking about Michael Myers and the mythology. But I'm saying, I love the first one, and I could take or leave every other one. The first one is great, and I love it, and I completely understand why you dig this movie. But, I honestly, I would recommend it to anyone and everywhere. I probably wouldn't recommend 2 through Halloween Kills.
Hey, you liked Halloween 2018.
Yeah, Halloween 2018 was good. Okay, so it's Halloween.
Yeah,
Halloween.
but Halloween 78, in my opinion, is a classic. We met Nick Castle, who was Michael Myers.
We did.
We met young Michael Myers.
We met PJ Souls.
We've met a couple of other Michael Myers that were attached to the original movie.
Yeah.
So
this is the one that you're like, I want everybody's signature.
Hey, if I'm gonna do the poster, it's got to have everybody on it. Those from the first movie.
Have you posted anything about your poster?
No, not yet. I'm saving that.
Eventually, you're gonna have to start posting updated videos of Boo's Michael posters.
Yes, eventually I will. But what is your number 3 pick?
My number 3 pick is by my favorite director of all time, Stanley Kubrick.
Oh man, cue in the music.
Dun, 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 dun. Yes, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I love this movie. I have film stills from it. I have posters from it.
You're welcome.
Yes, you got me the film stills for it. I've seen this movie in theaters on 35.
You're welcome.
Yes, we did that for our anniversary. I adore this movie. I've seen it a bunch of times. It's one of these movies that hits you just right, and it's this perfect, like, intellectual film that has these big questions about humanity. What's it mean to be human? What is the consequences of just this unbearable weight of consciousness? And it is so good. I love this movie.
And it's also borderline a silent movie because it is just quiet at some points where you're just like freaking out.
The opening of the film, the Dawn of Man sequence, you can watch as a silent film.
Yeah.
And that is just a testament to the masterful, like, craftsmanship of the film. And the movie's a masterpiece. And I know we went to see it in the theater, and you were fucking clawing your eyes out because you're like, can we please get this movie over with? And I'm sitting there, it's like, yo, after this is done, are they showing another showing? I'll run this bitch back right now.
Yeah, and they were doing a double feature, and we almost stayed for that. And I was like, I can't do it back to back. Like, no, I'm sorry.
Why do you hate all things I love?
I don't. But we're getting close to the end of this list. So
yes, we are.
Number 2 for me, and it's an episode we just recently did, is La La Land from 2016.
Yeah, of course it's La La Land, because it's every classic Hollywood musical rolled up into one nice ball.
And all, the Hollywood locations and LA locations that I love to go and visit. It's a beautiful movie. It's a love letter to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Which is your favorite thing in the world?
Los Angeles, yes.
Yes.
I love LA. LA's my home. Ah, man. Great movie. Can we talk about it again?
No, God. Everyone out there, we recorded the La La Land episode, and we were like, okay, we're done recording. And then we came back 10 minutes later because Boo had to talk more about the movie. And then
I still wasn't done, but...
We added on another, 30 minutes onto the recording, and then we're like, okay, we gotta go home. And then drive back, you're just like, hey, do you think we can, add another, talking bit to it? Because I got more to say, and, oh my God, no. Can we stop?
It's a great movie.
It is a good movie. It's a really fun movie. I appreciate that movie. I have, in that episode I mentioned, there's some things that rub me the wrong way, but it's still a really fun movie.
The fact that you're Seb.
Everyone. Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, it's a great movie.
Great movie. I love it. Highly recommend it. But what is your number 2 movie?
My number 2 movie was a movie that we watched on the podcast that you did not like, and it hurt my soul.
Oh, and that so dramatic.
And that is Harold and Maude. I fucking love this movie. This is a movie I've seen maybe 4 times, something like that. And it gets me every time. That ending just hits just right. The characters are so weird, but I just invest in them. It's such a fun, wacky, weird romance movie. It's a movie that you watch and you're like, how does this movie exist? It's this pitch black comedy that's also this romance film that's also dealing with life and death and what to do with your life, and it's such a good movie. I love that movie. This movie's great.
This is one of the few movies where you were demanding tears out of me at the end of it, and I was just like, I can't give them to you because it's just it doesn't touch me the way that it touches you, where it just makes you cry.
Heartless, damn it.
I mean, I've never not said I wasn't heartless. I'm like, I will, put that on the record and,
cry at everything.
Yeah, zero heart right here, but it's just like, no, it just didn't get to me the way that it gets to you. And I mean, I remember the first time you watched this and you texted me, you're like, oh my God, I'm crying in the middle of my classroom right now. And it's just like, and I'm like,
that movie just fucking hit.
And I'm like, did someone sit on your lunch? I'm like, what would cause a reaction out of Dean like this?
That movie is so good. And I get it, right? It might be a thing. It just hit me just at the right point, at the right time, whatever, and now I just can't walk away from it. But that movie is so much fun. It's so funny. I adore that movie.
Well,
it is for a particular taste, though. I will admit that. Yes,
it is. And we're moving on to our number one picks.
Yes, ones we've spoiled a million times if anyone is listening to this podcast.
Yes. So mine, I can't believe we did that at the beginning of this year. It feels like we did it a long time ago.
Yeah, honestly, I was looking back and I was like, oh, that was like our third or fourth episode, right? I'm like,
no,
we were like months in.
Yeah, This is my all-time favorite movie, Rebel Without a Cause, 1955, starring James Dean, Sal Mineo, Natalie Wood. Oh, such a good movie.
Yeah, it is a great movie. It is one of those movies where, yeah, there's not a lot I can add on to it. It's a movie where James Dean is giving a great performance, Sal Mineo is doing, like, a great performance, Natalie Wood is giving an okay performance. I'm sorry. But it's a great movie.
She gives a good performance in the character that she is written to be in this movie.
Yeah.
You know, we get all the great stuff at the Griffith Observatory.
It's another love letter movie to kind of that LA area.
In the 1950s, yeah. And it's very interesting to see, you know, where it was shot in LA and see it standing till this day. And it's just, you know, it's never going to change. It's one of these movies that will stick, you know, with film history forever because it has such a huge impact.
Yeah. And it's weird because I feel a lot of the movies we've talked about on the list are movies that you've seen when you were, like, younger. Mm-hmm. But this one was, like, when you saw it in high school?
Yeah.
Maybe?
I was maybe, like, 16 or 17 when I saw this for the first time.
Literally the exact right age for this movie.
Exactly. So it's like I was able to empathize with the characters in this movie, and I think that's what made it my favorite because it felt like they're talking to me. They're talking to a fellow teenager and we're being heard versus, you know, adults just kind of like, oh yeah, you know, it's a simple problem. You'll get over it. Things will change. And at that time, it feels like nothing's ever going to change.
You listened to so much My Chemical Romance in high school, didn't you?
Emo for life, baby.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, so we're going to go to Dean's number one favorite movie, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
Oh, God, no. It has been my favorite movie since I was a wee lad. It is the first movie I consciously remember ever seeing, and that is Back to the Future. And for a long time, and this is a true story, right around when I was in middle school, I stopped watching Back to the Future because I'd seen it a lot when I was a kid. Yeah. It was one of those movies where as a kid you just watch it on repeat over and over because you loved it. Middle school, I was like, all right, I put the movie away. I'm done. It'll be fine. And I didn't watch it for like 10, 15 years. And then we did like the double feature podcast, right? And David was like, oh, we're going to do Back to the Future and Raiders. And I was a little apprehensive because I was like, look, I loved Back to the Future when I was a kid. I don't want to watch it again now that I've gone to like film school and all these theory stuff. I don't want to analyze a part of my childhood and find out it's bad. I don't want that. And I watched it and I'm like, no. This movie has the greatest script ever written. It is one of the greatest acting performances by everyone involved. By Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, every supporting member in there, even Crispin Glover. Mm-hmm. It has some of the best effects of the 80s. It has such a fun adventure. It has such a great comedy. The movie is possibly the closest to pure perfection we will ever get in cinema. All right?
You've seen the clock tower with your own eyes.
I've seen it with my own eyes.
We've seen the high school.
I've seen the DeLorean.
You've seen the mall, which you've passed by for years. Yes. And it took me pointing it out to you.
That is the Twin Pines Mall, and it's up in La Puente. I've seen the sign. I have touched the real DeLorean, the screen-used one. I love this movie with a passion. I will never stop loving this movie. It is my favorite movie of all time. I don't know if it'll always be at number one, but it will always be on my list forever and ever and ever.
I think it'll be a number one for you always.
I know.
Because even with a 10, 15-year break, which I'm surprised that you didn't watch it for that long.
I made a conscious decision. I was like, all right, I love this when I was a kid. And I was like, all right, I'm going to I'm going to go to high school and stuff. I should probably put away the childish things, right? I made that conscious decision.
Come on, put away the childish things.
Yeah, whatever. But I made that decision. I was like, all right, it'll be fine. And then, I came back to it, and it was glorious. But yeah.
So yeah, those are our top 10 favorite movies.
Yeah, and before we clock off here, we do have a couple of questions that some people asked us, and we're just going to rattle them off real quick and try and answer some of them. You have a couple of questions from those?
Yeah, and then you have a couple. So I'm going to start off with first question. I know the answer, but why don't you tell everybody, who's your favorite director?
Stanley Kubrick, by far, easily. I love every one of his movies. I don't think he's ever made a bad film. Even the movies that are mediocre from him are still leagues ahead of anybody else. I think 2001 is a masterpiece. Clockwork Orange, masterpiece.
The Shining,
masterpiece. The guy, every time he touched a different genre, he revolutionized the genre from that point on. Barry Lyndon is a feast for the eyes. I think anybody who's interested in photography, painting, visual arts should watch Barry Lyndon. Dr. Strangelove says so much about humanity. Love that movie. Love the movie forever. Love this director forever and ever.
I mean, the fact that he was a photographer before he was a filmmaker.
He was a photographer for Look magazine. He hustled chest in New York forever to make rent money. The guy was weird and eccentric, and he made amazing works of fiction. But what about you? Favorite director?
I kind of had to do some soul searching because I know you, Stanley Kubrick, all the way.
Yeah.
For a while, I thought, Spielberg, because he's made so many great movies, and I love all his movies. But I, came back around. It's got to be Tim Burton for me.
I told you it was Tim Burton. We saw this question on the list thing, and I was like, hey, Boo, so you're going to be Tim Burton, right? You're like, no, it's not. It's going to be like Spielberg or something. And of course it's fucking Tim Burton.
I had to do some soul searching, and I'm like, well, let's see.
Was that search? Was the purse only 3 inches deep?
I mean, I don't know. I just had to sit there and I'm like, well, yeah, I love a lot of Tim Burton's movies. And I'm like, wow, a lot of Tim Burton's movies have shaped my life. And I'm like, thank you, Tim Burton. You've really helped me embrace my inner goth and emo-ness. Thank you.
Yeah, you want me to just go through the list of the Boo's real favorite movies? It's Beetlejuice, it's Edward Scissorhands, it's
Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Sleepy Hollow, Batman, Corpse Bride.
There you go. List goes on.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
I just like how mine was just oh, we know this. It's like, oh, yeah. And you're like, oh, I had to do this soul searching. I was like, oh, is she going to say Bergman or John Ford? Tim Burton? Oh, fucking course. There's no soul searching there. Look at any of your t-shirts.
I can't help it, okay? But yes, Tim Burton is my favorite director. Thank you, Tim. Let's see. Movie that changed your life. It's probably going to be Back to the Future, right? Or is it going to be something that you saw in film school that...
Okay, so it's not a movie. It was it's technically a movie, but it was a short documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, I can't remember the name of it, but you can find it on YouTube. It's James Rolfe, who was the angry video game nerd. It's a documentary about him that some classmates of him did while he was in film school in Philadelphia or something. And it's 5 minutes long, and it just talks about him and how growing up, he made these really kind of crummy short horror films, and how he always wanted to make films, and kind of his dreams and what he wanted to do. But he's talking in such a unpretentious and really real human way. And I was watching, and I'm like, yeah, I think I want to make movies. Because as he's talking, I'm like, me and him are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Growing up, we were both into Universal Monsters, both into metal rock music. We were both basically kind of from the same realm. And I was like, yeah, why the fuck do I want to be an English teacher? I don't care about, teaching the written word. I watch movies all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, most of the stuff I write about is just writing about shit I've seen in movies. Why don't I just make movies? That movie changed my life. It made me completely change my major. I watched that video for 2 or 3 times and changed my major in college the next day.
Interesting.
What about you?
Well, it's a series of movies, but it
pick one.
It all started with Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. Everything leads back to Universal Monsters with me. Yeah, it was a rainy day, and my grandma kind of just hey, I'm going to leave this on for you. And it was TCM, and they were having a whole Universal Monsters, just back-to-back movies for the day. And my eyes just were like glued to the screen. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it just kind of created this love for cinematography and set design and just the history of film from a young age. And I'm still on that track of, I gotta know everything. I gotta see film locations. It really,
yes, I don't think anybody knows this about you.
No, not at all. But it started the path and the journey that I've been on. So I gotta credit my grandma with that, because it blew my mind.
Yeah. I mean, those Universal Monster movies, a lot of people, when they see them really young, all of them leave an impact.
Yeah.
Well, The Invisible Man just missed out on my top 10 list.
I'm surprised, because you love The Invisible Man.
It's a great movie. It's probably one of Claude Rains' best performances, and he was in Casablanca.
Yeah.
But as it goes, I know we got 10, 20 something questions people were asking us. But,
yeah, so let me rattle off a couple more. So this is a two-parter. Favorite episode that we've done and least favorite episode that we've done.
I know the least favorite. That one's really easy. That was our Gangs in New York episode.
Yeah.
We can agree on that one?
Yeah, that's my answer too for least favorite.
Yeah, that one, I recommended it. I thought, this is going to be just a nice, it's like a 3-hour Scorsese movie.
Yeah, it's a long movie.
We'll be able to talk about so much in it. And then when we finished it, it was kind of like, man, this was kind of a dud movie, right?
Yeah, I mean, the movie wasn't bad. It was just
there wasn't anything to chew on, which is weird.
Because I mean, we talked a lot about Daniel Day-Lewis and a lot about Leo, and it was just kind of like
it devolved into us reading off IMDb trivia very quickly.
Yeah. So
Usually, the thing we leave is like, the little treat at the end of the episode where we talk for 5 minutes about some trivia of the movie. That became the whole 30-minute episode.
Yeah, so not our best, but
not really. That one just came down to not a lot of research, and also we may have picked a movie we were not ready to watch, because that was really early.
Yeah. What was your favorite?
My favorite episode, honestly, it might be Eraserhead, which is
that was an early one.
It was like a third or fourth episode. Well, because we were talking, and it was it really was a conversation between us, where it was, I did all this random weird research because I really like Eraserhead.
Yeah. And
I like David Lynch movies, and you were like, I don't understand it. I mean, you were like, I get the movie, it's an interesting movie, but what's up with this movie? And it was this really just kind of nice organic dialogue between us of trying to figure out Eraserhead. Yeah. Which philosophers have been doing for centuries. But yeah, I really like that episode. I have another one that's way more recent, but I think that's your favorite.
It might be, because my favorite was Giant.
Yeah, that's the other one.
I mean, I've seen this movie a bunch of times, but it was interesting to go in and see you watch it for the first time and see you fall in love with it, because I really thought you were going to have the opposite, coming out of it being like, oh, well, it was long, it was kind of boring. And you were just like, this is amazing, I love the family dramas.
I had work at fucking 5 a.m. the next day, and I was like, I'm going to watch the first, hour of this movie, and then I'm going to go to sleep.
We stayed up till, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning?
2, 3 in the morning, and I was like, I can't walk away from this. This is so good. I'm sitting there eating popcorn. Rock Hudson is fucking killing it. Liz Taylor is killing it. James Dean, killing it. Dennis Hopper, killing it. They're all killing it in this movie. It's such a good movie. Actually, okay, I got a question on right here, and it's kind of piggybacking off of that one.
Okay.
It's, what movie surprised you the most? Both good and bad. And Giant, for me, was the one that surprised me the most, because I thought it was going to be shit. And I also thought it was going to be a totally different movie.
Yeah, because Dean was talking a lot of shit before we, watched it and recorded it, and I'm like, look, homeboy, you're going to end up really liking this movie. I love this movie.
Okay.
I call you this all the time. Shut up. So, movie that surprised me, I kind of had to go through the list because we've seen, I think, 66, or we're getting close to 70 episodes.
Yeah.
So, in 70-odd episodes, I think the one that I kind of disliked the most was Stay Alive.
Really? Yeah. Oh, yeah, Stay Alive is also in the running for one of our worst episodes.
Yeah, because
that whole episode was just me being like, you should have watched the director's cut. I'm so sorry.
Because you were like, when you pitched it to me, you're like, it's a 2000s movie. Frankie Muniz, like, awesome. I'm like, I love,
It's a 2000 horror film. It was the only slasher film done by Disney. It's all this other stuff.
We watched it together, and you're like, ooh, you're like, this is making me cringe. And I'm like, well, this is my first time watching it. What am I supposed to, expect from this? So it wasn't that great. But a movie that surprised me that I really enjoyed was Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah. I was really happy that you liked Jacob's Ladder. I really dig that movie.
Yeah, never seen it before. I mean, it was just an experience. Mm-hmm. And I love that movie now.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, there is one movie for mine that surprised me that I disliked it so much, and I'm so sorry, but it's Addams Family Values. I was surprised, because I was watching that movie, and my entire memory was just the first film.
Yeah.
And then we watched it, and I'm like, this movie's kind of bad. And
but
granted,
it's not, though.
Well, that was the thing, because you were, like, defending it, like, adamantly, and I was like... Boo, like, I was going from, I'm kind of indifferent to now I have to stake my claim on this hill. This movie is the worst, it's horrible, and I actually went back, like, recently to give it a rewatch. I'm like, okay, like, people watch it on YouTube, and then it gets a lot of listens, I'm like, I gotta check, like, am I wrong? Like, is this actually a good movie? I'm just not giving the benefit of the doubt. No, that movie's shit.
That is in your opinion, because I love Addams Family Values. Great film.
It is what it is.
I mean, even, comments on YouTube, people love Addams Family Values, not just Addams Family. So, yeah, your worst is my best.
I mean, I'll take that, sure. Yeah.
Agreed. So, any more questions on your side?
Yeah, let me look here.
Because I've got one more on my list.
Oh, okay, well, we'll throw that one out here, because I got a few, like, written out on a bunch of these things.
Okay, which movie do you wish we could have turned into an episode this year that got put on the chopping block?
Oh, okay, because there's only 2 episodes I remember that we ever cut, right? And one of them was Team America, World Police.
Oh God, that one was just like...
Well, that one, I remember because we watched that one, and we were, like, I finished watching the movie, and I think you got, like, halfway through it, and then you texted me, because we had to watch them separately.
Yeah.
And you were like, we're not doing this movie. I'm like, what do you mean? And I think, did you send me a picture of the doll sex scene? Or did you just tell me it's like, I got to the part where he's shitting on her face, and then that was the end of the message, like, okay, we'll do something else.
No, I got to the doll sex scene, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then you're like, all right, go watch something else. I'm like, yeah, thanks.
That one was just misjudging. I guess it was just misjudging the kind of movies we would both get a kick out of. Because honestly, it's by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. It's a really funny movie. It's a big social commentary on... that early 2000s kind of like, climate. And that was that movie I wish we could have done an episode on, but I understand why that never happened.
Yeah, there was also, at the time that we wanted to upload that episode, there was a lot of turmoil going on, so I'm like, we don't need to add more fuel to the fire.
I don't think it would have mattered. I think that was one of the whole things where it's like, okay, we'll justify it like this. And I'm like, but in reality, it's like, this might just be another, like, Gangs in New York episode.
And I was just like, bruh. I'm like, the whole movie going through, I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. And then it's just like, doll sex scene. I'm like, all right, I'm out. I'm like, I tried to, fight my way through it. I'm like,
you finished Eraserhead for me. You couldn't finish Team America.
I will go on the record, Eraserhead is a better movie than Team America.
Oh, okay. I'm teaching her something. But the only other one I remember us ever cutting, and this is the reason we did... House on Haunted Hill, and it was Mandy, the Panos Cosmatos film from 2016. We actually recorded that episode.
Yeah.
And then, I think at the end of it, we looked at each other and we're like, this is a bad episode, right? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just we were tired, because we were doing a lot of recording back to back, and it was just kind of came out of that one like, oh, that wasn't our best work. And
everybody out there, like, we're not saying we're good at podcasting.
No.
There's probably a far more bad takes on this show than good ones. So you can imagine how bad Mandy was.
Yeah.
It was, we looked at it and we're like, yeah, let's just do a different movie. And I love that movie. That movie is great.
Yeah, and
I think it's such a good movie, but we had so little to actually talk about.
And I mean, we both agreed that we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
It's not something that we're going to completely, cross off the list. We're going to come back to it with fresh eyes and a different perspective and redo it, because even though we couldn't say a lot at the time, there's still a lot that we can say in the future about this movie.
Yeah. Okay, I got another one here.
Well, I didn't get to answer the question.
Yeah. Sorry.
Excuse me.
I ramble a lot.
Yes, all the time, if you guys haven't heard Dean before. So, two movies I wish that we could have done this year but didn't really fit in the schedule was The Artist. Which, that one, I absolutely love that movie, but maybe we'll do a theme month where we do maybe silent movies.
Sure. I mean, I know a couple of silent movies that I think you would really like. I think that one would just be... It would be really weird to do a month of silent films because I feel like we can get a lot out of The Artist, but I don't know how much we can get out of things like Dr. Caligari or like Nosferatu.
Or Chaplin.
We'll watch your Chaplin kicks.
Hey, I mean, coming from the guy that's stolen half of my Chaplin collection.
Hey, you keep handing it over to me. I don't know.
I don't
have a problem here.
That, and I also wish we could have made a Bride of Frankenstein episode this year, but we just couldn't really fit it into our schedule, so...
Yeah, we did that 3 months of horror movies, and then, like, an additional, like, month of horror movies somewhere else in the year.
I think so, but it just...
Those were all, like, really specifically themed, though, and that's why we missed it.
Yeah, so it's like we couldn't get it to line up right, so... Hopefully next year, maybe it'll make the cut along with your movies.
Yeah.
But you can never tell at the film club.
It's true. But I got a few of these, and these are a lot more just like upkeep questions.
Sure.
This is going to be a deep one.
Okay.
Why did you start the podcast?
This is something that I've wanted to start since we started dating, because it feels like we've been doing this show for like the past almost 8 years. Because when we met, we would go to this cafe in Fullerton called Rialto Cafe.
Yeah.
And what was...
The only thing I could think of to talk to you about when we were first dating was, I'll just talk to her about movies. I know a lot about movies. Everyone loves movies, right?
Well, that and what made Rialto Cafe so special was that they would show movies throughout the day, and we'd be there for breakfast every morning when we had classes. And it would be a different movie, and we'd get to watch a good amount of the movie together and kind of analyze, and we'd talk about it on our way to school and coming home. So from early on, I was like, well, I really like this rapport that we have. Mm-hmm. I would like to turn it into a podcast where we could just plan out movies and talk about movies. And once the pandemic came, it was just kind of like, well...
Everybody got a podcast when the pandemic came.
Pretty much. I was like, well, let's start it and see where we can go. And I've had a fun time doing this.
Me too. I remember you asked me when I was doing the double feature with David, and I was like, no, I really started liking doing podcasts, and you're like, oh wait, he knows how to do this now? Yeah, let's do this. Yeah, so yeah, it was super fun, and I guess that also leads into the other one of how long do you want to do the podcast? And I understand there's some point where I will want to retire.
Well, I mean, Mr. Podcast himself, who's, starting a new podcast just about every other day.
I like talking to people.
Yes.
Dialogue is the spice of life.
Oh, does Dean love to talk. But I don't really see an end date because there's just so many movies out there.
Well, I mean, I don't expect us to watch and talk about every movie ever. But I mean, I don't think we would ever stop. It would probably think we would slow down.
Yeah.
It would go from being like once every week to maybe like once a month, but I don't think we would ever stop. I don't think this would ever get retired.
No, I mean, it's weird because coming into this, I was very nervous and wasn't sure we'd be able to kind of pull this off, and now it's...
Your end goal was, we're going to do this till we get that Joe Rogan money.
No.
I don't think so. Your end goal.
No, I don't think we'll ever get Joe Rogan money. But I just wanted us to kind of do something that matters to the both of us because
something that's easier for both of us to talk about.
Well, that and, we've always have that deep-seated love for movies. So it's just kind of like, why don't we put this thing that we're passionate about into a project and see where we can take it? And I've had a blast. I mean,
it's a lot of fun.
We've talked about movies, we've gone to locations, we've gone to events, and I'm excited to see where we go in the future with this.
Same, I can't wait. And, okay, this one is probably also just a really important one for anybody out there who wants to do a podcast. And we've probably weeded out all the people who don't want to do them because we've been talking so long.
Yes.
But what do you wish you knew when you started the podcast that you know now?
Be prepared to research, because we do a lot of research, or at least I do a lot of research for each episode, and it's a lot of planning, because it's not just, we'll just rattle off the movies, each week as they come. It's like, no, you got to plan them out, far enough in advance so you have times and, scheduling. So it's just be prepared.
Oh, God, yeah. My biggest thing I wish I knew was how much work actually doing editing on these is. Because, people don't know this, but I do all the post for this. I do all the editing for the episodes. I do all, like, the sounds and the setups and all the recordings and stuff like that. And, I send it off to you, and you post it everywhere and do all the social media stuff. But, yeah, this shit is so much work, and it's just such a pain in the ass. But this leads us to the final question. What is the plan for next year at the Film Club?
Next year as in the beginning of the year?
Yes, that one.
Because, man, it's already 2022. Which means we got a whole other year of movies, but to kick it off, we're going to be doing the entire Scream franchise in January.
Yes, we are. We're going to do Screams 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the newest one.
And our first episode, if you guys, remember, is the original Scream by Wes Craven. Mm-hmm. We're going to be doing a retrospective coming out with Scream 2, so be prepared for that, and I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. This is also going to be a thing where we're going to be doing a lot more different things next year. Yeah. It's still going to be us talking about movies, still probably a very casual conversation.
Yeah.
But we're going to be doing a lot more different movies. The theme months are going to be probably less restrictive, but they're also going to be a lot of fun.
That was another question that we missed on our list. What was our favorite theme month?
Oh, had to be anime month.
Yeah?
Yeah, had to have been May. Because that one we got to do Perfect Blue, we got to do the 2 Miyazaki films, Pokemon. That one was probably the most fun month to do. I know the one I liked the least was Camp month. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, Camp was a little rough, yeah.
Disappointment after disappointment. Heavyweights was the only gold in that. But, yeah, that was the thing about month.
Addams Family Values is the one that topped out.
Right.
Dean was so mad.
The movie that I thought was the worst we'd ever watched was the most listened to episode of that entire month.
That's right.
Yeah, but anime month, absolutely. That's by far my favorite month. That one, I think we had the most good movies in a row. We had the most fun conversations. I thought it was by far the best one.
Interesting.
What about you?
I'm going to agree. Anime month. Absolutely love it. So anime month will be coming back. I'm excited.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess I'll spoil the first couple months because we know what at least January, February, and May are going to be. Because May is anime month. January is going to be our Screaming into the New Year.
Yep.
And then February we're going to do a Tarantino big retrospective. That's going to be the whole month of February.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to keep up with that, where can they go?
Well, if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Yes, you can go to our YouTube channel, In the Frame. That's right, In the Frame on YouTube, where you can find this podcast and the Film Odyssey podcast. And also, this year, we're going to try our best to do things other than just podcast on our YouTube page. Hopefully, you'll actually see more content on there, so go check it out. And, I don't know, have fun. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun trip. If you guys want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Film Club Podcast. And with that,
see everybody next week at the Film Club.
Happy New Year.